Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video, as we roll merrily towards the end of the year, I'd like to discuss a few themes from 2022 and reflect on where they may be going in 2023. I mean, in theory, if the government do or say anything stupid, I may have to put in some actual news, but I think we should be safe enough. Boris Johnson's passed out in a wheelie bin. Rishi Sunak's hiding under his desk. We haven't seen Jeremy Hunt for weeks. So in this first one, what I'd like to discuss is the EU Law Revocation and Reform Bill, which is the proposal to remove thousands of rights, freedoms and protections without any parliamentary scrutiny, all in the name of the hallowed Brexit. It is a bill that is, of course, quite mad. So what might Sunak be able to do with it? But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So the revocation bill it's been presented as the abolition of all EU rules. Get rid of those old EU rules. We don't need those anymore. It is misleading to describe them this way, though, for two reasons. First, there are no EU regulations at play in Britain. There are in the UK, because there are them in Northern Ireland, but, that's due to their softer Brexit. But in Britain, not a single EU regulation is on the statute books. We spent years converting them all into purely UK regulations. And why did we convert them all? Because they're useful. Second, it's not just a technicality either. Successive UK governments actually produced many of these regulations. In fact, the vast majority of them were either formulated by a British government or strongly supported by one. So in other words, even if we hadn't been a member of the EU, almost all of them would have been adopted in very similar form by UK government at the time because we were in favour of them. The real reason Brexiteers want to abolish these regulations is not because they've got anything to do with the EU. It's because they represent rights to ordinary people. So under the banner of Brexit, they've seen an opportunity to abolish them all without any scrutiny. Because, imagine if Parliament seriously debated and voted on a motion to, say, remove our right to paid annual leave, because that's amongst these rights, or the right of women to be paid the same as men for the same work, or sick pay. Can you imagine how the public would react if they discovered MPs talking about removing these rights one by one, debating them one by one, and finding out that their own MP was about to vote for it? There would be a lot of Tory MPs losing their seats at the next election. There will be anyway. But this would knacker them for a very long time because, like Labour would tell voters at the following election, so they'd come to power, restore these rights, then say, it took us quite a long time to do that. You've got your rights back now. If you let the Tories back in, they're just going to remove them again. And voters will believe it because, well, why wouldn't you? And if the Tories say, no, we leave them there. Oh, yeah, good one. The plan is insane, but Brexiteers think they can pull it off by just abolishing all of these regulations in one fell swoop in a single bill that won't involve detailed consideration of individual implications because there won't be time. So there won't be as much media coverage. But it would still be insane. The cost of the mini budget from Liz Truss and Kwasi Kwarteng, do you know what it became known as in financial circles? It was called the moron premium. Can you imagine what they would call the consequences of overnight dropping thousands of rules for businesses? Nobody would know what was going on. Apart from anything else, when regulations are changed, there's a fairly lengthy consultation period, right? And then you get, even when it's all passed and done, you have a few years before they're implemented, to let people prepare. This bill, which has not yet passed into law, proposes that all of these regulations cease to exist in 1 year and 2 days' time. And that's not 1 year and 2 days' time from when this act is passed. No. It's from now. We haven't even passed it yet. It hasn't even got halfway through its passage through Parliament yet. And we don't know when it will be completed. Oh, but there's a clause, though. There's a sunset clause. So if individual secretaries of state feel that more time is needed, they can order a stay of execution. So, on any regulations within their departments for a while. But that just extends the sunset clause. So it just means instead of at the end of 2023, it'd be like sometime in 2025 instead. But businesses will have no idea which ones may get a stay of execution or even when it will be announced. If you're talking about the investment in Britain, which has already taken a hit from Brexit, get ready for another exodus, because who's going to invest in Britain when you've got no idea what the rules are? The bill was basically published in the dying days of Boris Johnson's time in office by Jacob Rees-Mogg, as he was desperately clinging to power in need of support from the ERG. I would not be surprised to learn that its existence was either a desperate gambit by Johnson to cling on, to try and, look, I'm the real hardcore Brexiteer, you need to keep backing me, or, if he knew he was going anyway, sink his eventual successor. Liz Truss did nothing to stop it being presented to Parliament. Sunak too has not halted its progress. It's currently waiting for the report stage to complete before the third and final reading and vote in the House of Commons. There can be amendments proposed. There can be amendments. After that, it will then go to the Lords. And of course, the Lords will amend the hell out of it. But will Sunak accept the amendments? Will he have a choice? This is very speculative because I don't know how the various factions within the Tory party are viewing this bill, in all honesty. Obviously it's out of the question to pass it unamended and put it into legal force. But how many Tory MPs actually understand what this bill represents? If we lose all of those regulations at the end of next year, the Tories may end up back in Liz Truss levels of polling. They might actually not win a single seat in the next election because people already are wondering, so how can so many people still support the Tories? But imagine voting for a party that just took away your rights to having a holiday or sick pay or the multitude of other rights that most voters right now are not even aware are under threat. And the other thing as well that occurs to me, for the long-term health of Brexit, if the Conservatives remove these rights in the name of Brexit, what you're doing is you're trying to explain to people that we got these rights as a result of being in the EU. That surely drives more people to want to rejoin. For Brexiteers, this is an absolute nightmare of a bill. Sunak cannot possibly allow this bill to proceed. But we cannot think that Tory MPs in general will agree that something needs to change. After all, the bill came into being. It exists. It was voted through. It's passed 2 votes in the House of Commons. MPs have voted in favour of it twice now. So some of them think, yeah, we can live with this. Those MPs are still, the ones who think it's a good idea, are still likely to think it's a good idea. How many of them are there? How determined are they to see it through? That is the million-dollar question. I know that one idea touted is to extend the date. So instead of having it apply at the end of next year, have it apply at some point after the next election. The end of 2025, perhaps. But then the ERG know that it will never happen. Labour are going to win the next election and they will repeal the bill. I mean, there are a lot of bills that people think the next government should repeal. But this bill is definitely going to be priority one. So Rees-Mogg and anyone else behind this bill will see that their only chance to make it happen would be to have it not only enacted this Parliament, but implemented as well. After all, yes, it would take parliamentary time, but repealing the Act is relatively straightforward for Labour in government. It's just not a lot of debate about it. We're just chopping it. It's gone. Putting all the individual regulations back, if they've been abolished, that'll be impossible because they'd have to restore them one at a time. It would take many years to do that. And parliamentary time will be needed for all sorts of things. Unless any constitutional experts have a cunning plan for how you could put them all back in one fell swoop and be legal. So the question is, how many of the hardline Brexiteers want this and how desperately do they want it? If the bill was just the brain fart of Rees-Mogg and even most of the ERG knew it wouldn't fly, then surely Sunak would already have announced changes or declared that he was binning it altogether. That he hasn't suggests that Sunak thinks he has to proceed with this bill in some form, that it's not just Rees-Mogg getting behind it. And it's now a case of maybe he thinks negotiating with his own party to dial down the crazy. But it is quite binary. This bill is about getting rid of a load of rights, freedoms, protections. And they either do that or they don't do that. There is no kicking the can down the road. Like the general tactic when dealing with the RG has been to kick the Brexit can down the road. Try and come up with a cunning plan later. Just say, yeah, we're putting this thing in place. It'll happen later. And hope a miracle happens to stop them having to implement it. But there's a line in that road now, the general election. Whether they want to say out loud or not, almost all Tory MPs surely realise they are likely to lose that election. If they don't personally, they're going to be on the opposition benches. Therefore, any plan which relies upon the government doing something after that election is unlikely to be sound. Also, it's not clear how even delaying the implementation of this bill would help the Tories. I mean, let's say they pass it. Doesn't matter when the effects come into force. Doesn't matter. They've passed the bill. Labour will then say to voters, well, these are the rights you're about to lose. See, right now, Labour are having to present a fairly complex offer to voters, which involves digging our country out of the deep trench in which the Tories have buried it. Imagine if all they had to do was say, vote Labour and we'll give you back your right to take a holiday. Piece of piss. And like I say, this bill could sink the Tories for years. Because just passing a bill into law that threatens these rights, even if they're not implemented, means it'll be the official position that Tories want to take away these rights. So even if Labour abolish the plans, they repeal the bill before it comes into effect, save us from the consequences, just the idea that the Tories voted for it will mean people will not rush to back them, even if Labour don't deliver like the sparkly future they're hoping for. I mean, this bill really does strike me as the sort of thing you would publish if you were trying to stop your party winning an election for a generation. You know, Sunak will surely recognise this. Most Tory MPs must do. But we also have to remember that Brexit has been guided by a group of Tory MPs who are not actually Conservatives. They don't care about the future electability of their party. They just use the party for a purpose. The question is, how many are there and how determined are they? That is what I cannot know, but it is what Sunak will need to know in order to deal with this ticking time bomb of a bill over the coming months. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, please click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, the join button for memberships. And until next time, I'll see you later.